Red lights flashed across every wall of the ship, and I could hear people screaming through the comm system before I even docked. My name is Ethan Cole, and I was not supposed to be anywhere near this part of space. I was hauling scrap metal from an old mining station when my sensors picked up a distress signal so strong it nearly burned out my receiver. A massive alien vessel, drifting, dying, calling for anyone who could hear it. I almost turned away. Salvage runners like me do not go looking for trouble. But the voice on that signal was shaking with fear, begging in broken translated words for someone, anyone, to help before the air ran out. I could not fly past that and live with myself. So I locked in the coordinates and pushed my engines harder than they had ever gone. The ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of anything I had ever seen. Its hull was scorched black in places, torn open in others, venting thin trails of gas into the void. Whatever had hit this vessel had hit it hard. I circled once, found a docking port that still had power, and locked my shuttle onto it with hands that would not stop shaking. The airlock hissed open, and the smell hit me first. Burnt metal and something sharp, like ozone after a lightning strike. Then I saw her. A tall figure with pale silver skin and eyes like liquid gold stood in the corridor, gripping a support beam to stay upright. Behind her, dozens of others lay slumped against the walls, some moving weakly, some not moving at all. "You are human," she said, her translator device crackling against her throat. Her voice was rough, exhausted, but there was iron underneath it. "We called for help. No one answered, no one but you." "I heard you," I said, stepping through the airlock. "What happened here?" "Our reactor is failing. In hours it will breach and destroy this ship, or the air will run out first. My engineers say there is no solution. I do not accept that answer, but I have none of my own." I looked past her at the crew scattered along the corridor, weak, frightened, running out of time. Whoever this woman was, she was still standing when everyone else had collapsed. That told me everything I needed to know about her. "Take me to your reactor," I said, "right now." She studied me for a long second, gold eyes narrowing like she could not decide if I was foolish or brave. Then she turned and moved down the corridor faster than I expected someone in her condition to move. "I am Vesa," she said over her shoulder, "captain of this vessel, for whatever that is still worth." "Ethan," I said, jogging to keep up. "Let's see if we can make it worth something again." The reactor room was worse than I expected. Twisted metal, sparking wires, and a low humming sound that made my teeth ache. 3 crew members were already there, working frantically at a console covered in symbols I could not read. One of them, an older male with deep lines across his face, turned when we entered. "Captain, this human cannot help us. Our systems are beyond." "He is here, and you are not fixing anything," Vesa snapped. "Show him the readings." The engineer hesitated, but one look from Vesa made him step aside. I moved to the console and stared at the display. Even with the translator software struggling to convert their numbers into something familiar, I could see the shape of the problem within seconds. A containment field, cracked and unstable, feeding directly into a power core close to critical mass. "How long until it breaches?" I asked. 6 hours, the engineer said, perhaps less. "And the air?" 18 hours, if we are careful. I ran the numbers again in my head, faster this time. The math was ugly, but there was a pattern hiding inside it. A pattern that reminded me of an old trick engineers back home used on unstable fusion cores. A trick most people considered too dangerous to try unless there was truly nothing left to lose. "Your field is symmetrical," I said, "locked in a perfect triple pattern. That is why it is failing. The crack broke the symmetry, and your systems keep trying to force it back into a shape it cannot hold anymore." The engineer's eyes widened, somewhere between shock and offense. "That pattern is the foundation of our engineering. It has held for 2,000 years. "It held until today," I said. "I am not saying your design is bad. I am saying right now, it is broken, and trying to force it back into the old shape is going to kill everyone on this ship." "Then what do you suggest?" Vesa asked, stepping closer. "Break the symmetry on purpose. Desynchronize the field for a few seconds. Let the pressure equalize naturally instead of fighting it. Then bring it back online using your backup harmonic frequency instead of the primary one. It will not be perfect, but it will hold." Silence fell over the room. The 3 engineers looked at each other like I had suggested burning down a temple. "You want us to intentionally break containment," the older engineer said slowly, "on a reactor that is already unstable. For about 4 seconds. Then we bring it back symmetrical, but shifted. It will hold long enough to get you somewhere safe. If you are wrong," Vesa said quietly, "the reactor breaches immediately, and we all die in an instant instead of slowly." I met her eyes. If we do nothing, you die slowly either way. I would rather give you a real chance." The room went completely still. I could hear the low groan of the dying reactor, the distant hum of failing life support, the shallow breathing of exhausted crew members waiting for their captain to decide whether to trust a stranger with all of their lives. Vesa did not look away from me, not once. "Do it," she said. The engineers moved fast once the order was given, and I moved with them, translating my instructions as clearly as I could while they worked the controls. My hands found unfamiliar switches, foreign symbols, a language of engineering built by a species I had never even heard of a day ago. But numbers are numbers, and pressure is pressure, no matter what species is measuring it. "On my mark," I said, watching the containment readout climb toward the threshold I had calculated. 3, 2, 1, now. The lights dimmed across the entire ship at once. A deep shudder ran through the floor beneath my boots, strong enough that I grabbed the console to stay upright. Somewhere far below us, I imagined the reactor core trembling, caught in that dangerous open moment where anything could happen. 4 seconds. It felt like 4 hours. Then the older engineer's voice cracked through the tension. "Backup harmonic engaging." The lights flickered once, twice, and then steadied, brighter than before. The humming sound that had haunted the room since I arrived smoothed out into something almost peaceful. On the display, the containment field snapped into a new pattern, uneven compared to the old one, but stable, solid, holding. For a moment, nobody spoke. Nobody dared to believe it had worked. Then somewhere down the corridor, a voice called out that the air scrubbers had come back online at full power. Another voice, further away, shouted that gravity stabilizers were restoring across the lower decks. The entire ship seemed to exhale at once, a great tired breath after being held far too long. Vesa closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, there was something different there, something softer beneath the exhaustion. "You saved my ship," she said. "We saved your ship," I corrected. "I just pointed out where to push." She did not answer that. She simply turned to her engineers and gave orders in her own language, quick and sharp, sending them off to check every deck, every system, every life sign. Then she turned back to me. "Walk with me," she said. We moved slowly through corridors that were beginning to hum with restored power. Crew members who had been slumped against the walls were sitting up now, some crying, some laughing, all of them staring at me like I had fallen from the stars themselves. I tried to ignore the attention. It felt strange, being looked at like that. "You could have refused to help us," Vesa said as we walked. "Many would have. A stranded ship of an unknown species, far from your own people, with nothing certain waiting for you here except danger." "You were dying," I said simply. "I had a way to help. That is usually enough of a reason where I come from." Is it truly that simple, for humans? I thought about it for a moment. Not always. But it should be. She studied me the way someone studies a puzzle they cannot quite solve, like she was searching beneath my skin for the real reason, the hidden motive, the thing that made a stranger risk everything for people he had never met. I let her look. I did not have a better answer to give her. We reached a large open chamber that must have served as their dining hall. Long tables bolted to the floor, benches lined up in careful rows. Crew members were already gathering there, drawn by news that their captain was walking through the ship again, alive and steady on her feet. Vesa stopped in the center of the room. Every conversation around us fell silent. 6 days, she said, her voice carrying easily across the chamber, stronger now than it had been in the reactor room. 6 days we drifted, calling into the void, waiting for anyone brave enough to answer. Our own kind passed us by. Ships from 3 different systems ignored our signal. We began to believe help was not coming. She paused, and her golden eyes found mine across the room. Then a human answered. A human who owed us nothing, who knew nothing about us, who had every reason to fly past a wounded stranger in the dark. Instead, he came aboard, walked into a dying reactor room, and found a way to save every single life on this vessel. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I felt heat rising in my face, and fought the urge to look away. It was just numbers, I said quietly, a pattern that needed breaking. It was courage, Vesa said firmly, cutting through my protest without hesitation. Courage that our own engineers, brilliant as they are, could not find within themselves. Courage to break something sacred in order to save something precious. She turned fully toward the gathered crew, straightening her posture in a way I had not seen her do before, formal and deliberate, like she was about to perform something ancient and important. By the old right of the drifting ship, she said, and her voice rang out across the chamber like a struck bell. I name this human kin. Not guest, not stranger, not simply an ally who happened to pass by at the right moment. She stepped closer to me, close enough that I could see the exhaustion still lingering behind her golden eyes, mixed now with something warmer. Family, she said. Bound to this crew as surely as any born among us, from this day until he chooses to leave us, or until the stars themselves burn out. For a moment, nobody moved. Then, all at once, every crew member in that chamber rose to their feet. It was not loud, not a cheer like I might have expected back home. It was something quieter, heavier, more solemn. A single motion rippled through the crowd as every fist struck against every chest plate at exactly the same moment, a sound like a held breath finally released after far too long. I stood there, completely unprepared for any of it, unsure what to do with my hands, unsure what to do with my face. I just fixed your reactor, I said, mostly to fill the silence. You fixed us, Vesa said, and something close to a smile crossed her tired features. The reactor was simply where you began. I did not have a response to that. I am not sure any response would have been good enough. That night, if you could call it night on a ship drifting through open space, I sat in what had become my temporary quarters, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything that had happened in the last several hours. A distress call, a dying ship, a desperate gamble that could have killed us all instead of saving us. And now, somehow, I had been declared family by an entire crew of beings I had known for less than a day. A soft chime sounded at my door. When it slid open, Vesa stood there, looking steadier now, though still tired. "May I speak with you?" she asked. "Of course." She stepped inside and sat across from me, folding her hands together in her lap. For a long moment, she said nothing, simply studying the small quarters, the unfamiliar human belongings scattered around. "I owe you an explanation," she said finally, "for what I did tonight, before the entire crew." "You don't owe me anything," I said. "You already thanked me." "It was more than thanks," she said. "Among my people, the right of the drifting ship is not spoken lightly. It has not been invoked in generations. It means exactly what I said it meant. You are not simply welcome here. You belong here, if you choose to stay, for as long as you wish to remain." I sat with that for a moment, letting it settle. "Why me?" "You barely know me." "I know enough," Vesa said. "I know that when everyone else passed us by, you did not. I know that when your solution could have killed us all, you did not hesitate to offer it, because the alternative was certain death regardless. I know that when an entire crew of strangers looked at you like you had saved the universe, you tried to give the credit to your own engineering rather than yourself." She leaned forward slightly. "Where I come from, that tells us everything we need to know about a person's character. More than years of acquaintance ever could." I did not know what to say to that, so I said nothing at all for a while. The hum of the restored reactor pulsed steadily somewhere far below us, a heartbeat for the entire ship, one that would not be beating at all if things had gone differently. "What happens now?" I finally asked. "To your ship, I mean. Where were you headed before all this happened?" "We were traveling to resupply at a station 3 systems from here," Vesa said. "A journey that will now take considerably longer, given our damaged state. Repairs, proper repairs, will take time." "I have tools on my shuttle," I offered. "Not much, but enough to help patch some of the damage, at least until you can reach somewhere better equipped." "You would delay your own journey for us? You already saved our lives once tonight." "I don't really have anywhere pressing to be," I admitted. "Just hauling scrap metal, remember? This is more interesting." Something in her expression shifted, softened further, though I could not quite name what emotion had crossed her face. "Then perhaps," she said slowly, "you will consider staying longer than a single night." I thought about my empty shuttle, my quiet, solitary runs between mining stations, the kind of life that had felt normal until about 6 hours ago. Then I thought about the crew members who had risen to their feet in that dining hall, the sound of their fists against their chests, the strange warmth of being called family by people who had been strangers only hours before. "I think I would like that," I said. Vesa nodded, satisfied, and rose to her feet. At the door, she paused and looked back at me. "Rest, Ethan Cole. Tomorrow there will be much work to do, and a crew eager to know the human who saved them all." "Tell them I'm not that impressive once you get to know me," I said. "I still get lost trying to find my own shuttle's bathroom." For the first time since I had met her, Vesa laughed, a low, warm sound that seemed to surprise even her. "I very much doubt that will matter to them." The door slid shut behind her, and I lay back against the unfamiliar bedding, staring up at an alien ceiling on an alien ship, surrounded by people who had been complete strangers less than a day ago and now called me family. 6 months later, I still fly alongside that same vessel, though it has a new name now, chosen by the crew after full repairs were complete. They call it the Second Breath, in honor of the night the reactor came back online, and the whole ship exhaled together for the first time in days. I am still the reckless one, according to Vesa, whenever I suggest breaking some sacred rule of engineering to fix a problem faster than her people think is wise. I do not think that reputation will ever change, and honestly, I have made peace with that. What I have learned, flying alongside this crew, sharing meals in that same dining hall, listening to stories from engineers who once thought my solution was madness and now credit it with saving their lives, is that family is not always something you are born into. Sometimes it is something offered to you, freely and without conditions, by people who see something in you worth keeping close. I did not set out to find a new family among the stars. I set out to haul scrap metal and mind my own business. But when I heard that distress call, shaking and desperate, calling for anyone brave enough to answer, something in me could not simply fly past. I like to think that decision, more than any calculation I ran in that reactor room, was the real reason Vesa stood before her entire crew and named me kin. Not because I fixed a broken machine, but because I refused to leave people behind when leaving would have been so much easier. That, more than anything else, is what family truly means. Whether you find it among your own kind or among strangers with golden eyes and silver skin, drifting through the dark, waiting for someone willing to answer the call.